So I came across this video a couple weeks ago about a news story. I think at this point it's about a month and a half old, about firefighter paramedics that didn't go into a facility due to COVID concerns. And I think this particular story highlights a lot of problems that fire departments across the country have been facing. And I wanted to go through this story, kind of talk about it, and highlight some of the issues we've been dealing with.
Yes, good evening. The video you're about to see, which we obtained through a records request, refers to a department that is truly admired and particularly adamant of being interactive with the community. So when this was put out, it has been described as an aberration by officials, which makes the whole thing even more difficult to watch.
It's a very hard video to watch.
Rialto Mayor Pro Tem Ed Scott referring to police camera video of fire personnel responding on November 11th.
All right, so before we go any further, the first thing to note is that the patient in this case did pass away. And obviously that's always a sad and tragic thing. So my condolences to the family, absolutely. The second thing I'm going to say is when I watched the original video, and I'll put the link to the original video down below, there is a lot of emotion wrapped up in people's responses, especially people in the fire service, really going after these guys or whoever else was there. I can only see those two. Before any sort of independent investigation has rolled out or anything like that, talking about how bad it was what they did and how they were incorrect. One thing that I've noted is that over the years, sometimes the news doesn't always have all of the facts right away. And I will be the first to admit that based on this video and the story presented, that yes, it does look very bad. And yes, if this is all the facts and this is exactly what happened, they probably should have gone into that facility. However, we don't have all the facts and we don't know everything that happened. So I guess what I would say is, as a firefighter and as other people that work in public safety, maybe try your best to reserve your judgment until the investigation is done, because if you were to make a mistake on a truck or do something that's totally out of character, or you had a complete misunderstanding of what the rules were, or what the law was, or what the protocol was, or what to do or what not to do, you would probably want an independent investigation to play out as well before people were making death threats towards yourself.
It's a break for a male not breathing.
The 911 call for a male not breathing came from the Rialto Post-Acute Care Facility, where a Rialto police officer responded along with Rialto fire paramedics, who told the officer the patient had to be brought out to them. And that's when the officer went in.
How? With the will?
They're not going to come in. They're saying it's a state law that they can't come in.
911, they have is a cardiac arrest. He's completely out. We're doing the pressure. You cannot move him.
Inside the patient's room, several people are working on him.
So a couple things. There's an unsaid, I don't know if tension's the right word, but there's we'll go with that. There's an unsaid tension between nursing homes and long-term care facilities and EMS agencies and 911 responding agencies. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I know a lot of 911 agencies and EMS agencies believe that the people that work at these, and this is not across the board, I'm just speaking generally here, are poorly trained and very apathetic towards the care of their patients. Of course, there are exceptions to that, but that's a general idea that's out there. But also, I know that there's a lot of nursing home facilities and long-term care facilities and acute care facilities like this, where these nurses and these nurse aides and nurse practitioners and the people that work there actually have a very difficult job. And I don't think people really recognize how difficult their job is. A lot of times they deal with very, very, very low staffing. It's very difficult, and it's not necessarily a high-paying job to work in a nursing home. It's much more difficult work than people realize. Dealing with chronically ill senior patients generally can be a very difficult population to work with over time. You have poor staffing. Sometimes you have poor training. The turnover can be very high. There's a lot of difficulties inherent in working in these types of places. And I don't think enough people in the EMS and 911 agencies give enough credit to the fact that some of these people really are trying the best they can, but maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't have experience. Maybe they're just so chronically understaffed. It's one person for just an unreal amount of patients and things happen. But that could underlie some of the tensions that go on here. Again, nothing that I'm saying in this video is meant to excuse anybody or say anybody is at fault or is not at fault. I'm just trying to explain some of the thinking, some of the tension behind what possibly could have happened.
Turn
The bed has no wheels, so they're not able to move him, and the officer jumps into action.
Someone get up there to help her steer it, and I can push it.
They push the patient out the door of the facility to the waiting firefighters, who eventually do transport the man to the hospital. But 56-year-old Joseph Angulo died that night.
I became a
So this is the other thing I want to highlight. There are a lot of potential areas of confusion, and anybody that's worked in EMS for a long time or 911 service really in general could understand that the importance and can understand and appreciate the importance of communication. We heard in the original 911 call, it came in as someone not breathing, or maybe it was shortness of breath. I don't remember exactly what they said. And it turns out that it was a full arrest. I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me personally. And every first responder that I know has gone on calls where the call comes in as one thing, and when they show up, it's something completely different. Whether it may be more serious or maybe not as serious, right? It just doesn't depend. It depends. But there's confusion between the original caller, 911, and when it eventually gets to us. So that's one area of possible confusion here. The other one is, over the course of the last couple of years, with everything that's gone on with the pandemic, everybody has created kind of their own best practices, their own new protocols. Obviously, we'll talk about this here in a second. There's a Fire Chiefs Association that recommends that these types of facilities bring patients out to them to avoid first responders going into these facilities and possibly getting people more sick. That's my understanding of why they would put out a protocol like that. But then I've also heard of facilities like this, and at this point I've talked to many people across the country of nursing homes that just won't allow first responders in until they go through an entire checklist and temperature check and past medical history check, when they just called 911. So that totally defeats the purpose. And I think that with everything that's happened over the last couple of years, I think so many people, it confused a lot of people, and I think everybody's doing their best with what they have and the information that they have, and doing their best to protect and take care of the people that they are responsible for. In this case, the nursing home facility, and in the case of the Fire Chiefs Association, the fire departments and the medics that work for them. The problem with this is, with everybody kind of putting out their own best practices, it creates a lot of confusion. It creates a lot of confusion as what precedes what supersedes what should we be doing in certain situations. And they'll talk about the law here about how paramedics can't refuse service except for very specific situations, and that is the case. But the point I'm making is, it's very easy to judge these firefighters and medics that are standing out here and just say something blanket like, well, they just don't care. Well, that's probably not the case. I haven't met very many firefighters that just truly do not care and will truly not do anything. There were probably some other factors going on, but let's keep going.
aware due to a complaint from one of the employees down at the care center, so I reported it to the city attorney.
We reached out to California's Emergency Medical Services Authority, getting a statement reading that, quote, upon acceptance of a call assignment, California paramedics cannot refuse service, i.e. assessment, treatment, transport, unless directed by law enforcement or if the scene is unsafe. But we were also directed to this memo from the San Bernardino County Fire Chiefs Association. It outlines best practices for long-term care facilities like the Post-Acute Care Center, including that dispatch centers request facilities to move patients to the door or outside. Still, the memo is dated April of 2020, over a year ago, and we asked if the city had any similar guidance.
To my understanding, there may have been something in the very beginning, but currently there is not.
At tonight's council meeting, this from an emotional Rialto mayor.
I don't think there's any words that we could say to anyone to underscore that we want to have a thorough investigation.
Rialto Fire Department's acting chief, Brian Park, also issuing a statement reading in part, the department personnel under investigation have already been placed on leave pending an independent third-party investigation that is in progress. He also went on to thank the police officer and the nurses for what he describes as their heroic actions.
Okay, so I wanted to underscore a couple things that were said. The first was they stated what the law was in California about how California first responders can't refuse service once they're dispatched on a call. And that is my understanding of most states. I think that's generally a state legal issue. I think different states have different exceptions for when you can and can't do that, and different laws surrounding that. I'm not an attorney and I'm not going to pretend like I am one, but that is my understanding as well. Unless a scene is actively safe or the police tell you to get out of there because something's going on, you generally can't just shrug your shoulders and say, well, I'm not going to go on that. The next thing I wanted to point out is the own mayor himself said when he was asked, is there a protocol like this with the city in place? And his own answer was, there might have been something at the beginning, but I don't think there is anymore. This really underscores the point. And it, unfortunately, in this case, came at a tragic ending. Somebody passed away. And I'm not blaming the firefighters for that person passing away. But this really underscores the point that there's so much confusion that even the head of the city is saying, well, I think there might have been something, but there might not be now. It's important, and I think the best thing that we can do from this is use this as a learning opportunity and maybe go through your own protocols and best practices and how you're going to handle things, and coordinate with the different care facilities and the hospitals as how things are to be done in the safest way possible and in the best way possible. So as always, I hope you found this useful and helpful. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.